What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Friday morning to you, and welcome to this devotion through the Gospel of Luke. We're still in Luke chapter 16, if you want to pick up and join me there, and we are just moving from one parable to the next. Again, this is the land of the parables right here in Luke 15 and 16. And funny enough, we were talking yesterday about what was maybe the most difficult to understand parable because it seems to be odd. And then we get into another parable that's just hard. It's like, oh my gosh, Jesus tells a parable and it begins like this. Verse 19 says, there was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. He goes, at this gate was laid a beggar named Lazarus, covered with sores and longing to eat what fell from the rich man's table. And even the dogs came and licked his sores. Now, the whole parable is pretty long here. I'm going to give you a summary of it so we don't get into the minutia of it because I want to stay on the big picture point of it. Then it goes on to tell a parable about how they both die. And they both basically end up in the afterlife. One's kind of in heaven, one's in hell. There's an abyss between them. They're able to see each other and talk to each other. Again, it's a unique parable because what the rich man ends up saying is, hey, I'm in agony here. Can you have that guy Lazarus come and help me? And God said, no, there's a divide between you. And then he goes, well, hey, can you send somebody back into the realm of the living and go warn my brothers not to live a life like I did? And then, of course, he goes, no, that's not necessary because verse 31, and this kind of wraps the whole parable, he goes, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead. I love that line, even if someone rises from the dead. And so there's a teasing here of the resurrection. There's also a teasing the idea of like, hey, just because somebody comes back from the dead does not mean everybody's going to believe. And that actually played out. It still plays out every day. And the reason why is because, well, some people, it's not that they won't believe. It's that they don't care to. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like, it's not that there's not enough information. It's not that there's not any compelling evidence. It's not any of that stuff. Sometimes people just don't want to believe because if I believe, that's going to infringe upon what I really want to do with my life because then I have to acknowledge that God is bigger and greater than me and deserving of my worship and honor. If I can ignore that, then I can put me at the center of my universe and I can just worship and honor me as the ultimate. And so some people, it's not that they can't believe, they just don't want to believe. But in this parable though, I think it's a parable that's actually very much linked to the one yesterday. Yesterday was a parable about a person who used their earthly and worldly wealth to make friends so that when they died and went to heaven, somebody would greet them there in eternal dwellings. This one is the exact opposite. I want you to consider this. There was a rich man who sat at a gate every day in purple and fine linen and lived in luxury every day. And you know what else was sitting at that gate every day? A poor man with sickness and disease. And basically it's a parable about like, no, you can't be a rich person sitting there looking at a poor and suffering person and do nothing about it every single day while you live in absolute luxury and you don't do anything for people around you. That hell is ultimately about a rich man who overlooked a poor suffering man and did not care. And so rather when he goes into the afterlife, he's not receiving heaven on earth and he's not receiving heaven in the life to come. He's not receiving eternal riches. He is in agony and suffering. And so again, it's a story about a rich man stepping over a poor man, a rich man who could have helped but did nothing. And then what you find is that there's this tension with us to say, oh my gosh, hell would be this for me to get to the other side of this life and realize that I have total loss. I have completely missed the point. There's another parable that Jesus tells about a guy who was so rich and so wealthy and he stored up barns and his small barns ran out of space. So he built bigger barns, but then he died. And the tragedy of that parable is the same as this one. It's like, no. If you only live for this life, hell is this. You experience total loss. You lose everything that you built in this world and you lose everything in the life to come. And so church, let us be a people who are never sitting there looking at all of our resources that we could do something with, that we could help somebody with, and to simply overlook their pain and suffering. Let us be people of compassion and radical generosity. Can I get an amen? Church, I love you so much. God bless you. I'll see you this weekend.